everyone. Welcome to another Something Bad Thursday. Just a heads up, Fridays as well as Saturdays and Sundays video will unfortunately have to be delayed since I will be gone for the weekend, but I will be sure to upload them when I am able to, hopefully on Monday. But this one is going to be on time because I've been able to sort of recover after going through this week. So without further ado, let me address what I wanted to address for the Something Bad Thursday, and that has to deal often, I guess what you could classify as a certain kind of complaining. In particular, complaining about sort of these, I guess they like to title them first world problems. I think for some reason, it seems like this day and age, oftentimes you will get complaints, and whether it be from, a customer, whether it be from people on social media, there's always somebody out there trying to initiate some kind of complaint because for some reason something bad is happening and needs to be somehow stopped. But oftentimes, the complaints are really very almost petty, I would say. They're not really genuine complaints to have. I mean, these complaints are really, again, designed to be not real problems or real issues. And I think it's popping up more so than ever before. And I think there could be a variety of reasons for this. I think part of it might have to do with the fact that within the Western world in particular, within the United States, we sort of have maybe a more, I guess, a mentality that unfortunately results into some people being overly spoiled and feeling like that every single little thing that doesn't go the way they want it to has to somehow be changed so that it goes in the other direction, as opposed to them sort of, just going about their day and not worrying what is out there in the world and just kind of just going out there and, trying to be a good member of society. So again, I think a lot of it is fostered through that mentality, and I think a lot of it can be due to the fact that, again, a lot of people like to generate some kind of attention from complaining, and people want to have their voice heard somehow. But sometimes, and for most of the time, at least when it comes to the complaints that I'm talking about, they're really not necessarily complaints that really need to be solved or need to be fixed. I mean, it's just complaining for the sake of complaining. So again, I think a lot of it has to do with gathering some kind of attention, some kind of following, so to speak. And oftentimes, again, I can understand, sometimes even with criticism of movies, I can understand too, like sometimes I feel like certain opinions people have just based upon how something looks or how something's really presented, and not necessarily focusing on the real deep substantive parts of a film is also something that I've noticed too. It seems like we like to nitpick certain areas instead of judging it based on what it's presenting to the audience. So you'll get that kind of complaining too, and something that's not PC, we get a lot of that too on top of that, on top of the other kinds of complaining. So it's a very interesting time to be living in. But basically, I think the best example and the most recent example that I can give of this is the whole Starbucks cup. And I'm not complaining, I'm not complaining. I am not kidding you about this. There was a uh, thing going on Twitter where people were complaining about the color of the Starbucks cups. Because Starbucks, instead of deciding to put some kind of design on their cups around the holiday season, they just kind of decided to just put a red on it, and then people could, I guess, draw whatever they wanted to really draw on it. And I almost feel like that just complaining about a cup, I mean, why would we need to, why does Starbucks need to suddenly change just to suit uh, the complaints of these people when it comes to this cup color choice? I mean, I don't really understand why you need to complain about that. You know, it's just a cup. I mean, um, and I think it was actually probably an interesting approach that Starbucks decided to do, at least this time around, considering the fact that all of their other cups in the past have been all decorated and done with a certain design on them. So, again, giving somebody sort of the liberty to do whatever they want or do a doodle or something, um, or have the baristas, write something for the person, like say "Have a nice day" or something that they probably couldn't do on a very stylized cup. I mean, I just don't get the whole complaint. I mean, it just doesn't amount to really anything. I mean, it's almost like you can't win when you present something. It's like either somebody will complain about it. They will find a way to complain about it. Whatever is given out there, people will say it's this, it's that, this is not right, this is blah blah blah. So, it's almost like you can't really win when it comes to this day and age when you're just presenting something to people. You just kind of have to go with the flow, and at the end of the day, it's important that, just your message, I think, ultimately, kind of gets out there, um, as opposed to what ultimately people end up really thinking about that idea. Because, there's, unless it's, constructive criticism, it really, a lot of it, the times now, it's just designed to just be whining, not necessarily, for something to, uh, or at least trying to put some ideas forward that would be of substance. So again, that's like the most basic example I could give to you. And literally, people were complaining about this. They were complaining about the Starbucks cups. Yeah, that's what they were complaining about. I don't know really necessarily if it had to do with the fact that red is supposed to, I guess, symbolize more of Christianity, or if there were some people who thought that there should be a design on it, um, Christmassy or something. I don't, again, I don't really get the whole, I didn't even really understand the complaint. It just seemed like that there was just a bunch of different ideas being thrown out there, and really, again, not really genuine criticism. I mean, it would be different if Starbucks, I don't know, I guess drew something that was like, completely out of whack, and, or, maybe made even a cartoon or something on their cups, or I don't know. I would understand if there was something to complain about that was, that had some substance. But again, even complaining even just what the heck is on a cup is still just ridiculous. So yeah, but again, the one of the most recent examples of people going nuts over something that really doesn't need to go bonkers over. It's just unnecessary. And again, I think a lot of this complaining, a lot of this whole, I think this whole attitude is really bringing everybody else down, because when you're constantly complaining, and making demands and, you know, forcing people sort of into a corner, you know, and not opening yourself up to discussion, you know, and just kind of just getting angry for no reason. You know, it really, I think, fosters a certain amount, I think, of hostility. And I think this really makes it so that there's a little, if no, cooperation between people. Because if you think about it, if you have somebody that's constantly complaining, um, especially within a work environment, I mean, how do you want to move forward? You know, I mean, it's kind of holding people back when you have this one person who constantly is making these crazy out of whack demands and constantly complains over things. You know, I mean, I think that's something that's unfortunate, and it can also exist also too. You know, with customers as well. You know, people complaining about what an organization did or blah blah blah. You know, constantly trying to have something, you know, sort of uh, pushed onto other people because they don't like what they're, again, what is being presented to them, what is being sort of uh, given to them in the sort of marketplace of ideas. So I think that's really the biggest, at least I think one of the biggest issues that I think really impacts the way in which we sort of interact with one another. I mean, I think a lot of it is really just complaining for the sake of complaining. Um, you know, making a big deal about, you know, somebody's shirt or you know, or you know what this one person said about this other person. You know, it's just all drama. Again, it kind of goes back to a lot of the other things that are bad, at least the ones that I've been discussing over the times that I've been addressing bad things throughout this channel. You know, it just, you know, it's just this idea of, again, not generating cooperation. And I think it's important for us to sort of leave our complaining um, out the door. And instead, if we do ultimately criticize something, it's for certain reasons, and it's not just because, you know, it's presented in a way that I think is somehow um, offensive or wrong. You know, I mean, I like to look at things in a broader sense, and I always end up actually finding something good, or I'll always end up finding something good, even in the most crappiest of movies that I've looked into over the years. I can say that with certainty, I always still see that there's some potential. You know, there is something good in there. It's just compiled with all of this junk. So again, I think that's something that we tend to overlook too when we're overly critical and constantly complaining. You know, we don't see the good in anything anymore. Um, you know, and we put things in a very one-sided category. And I think that's really a problem. You know, when there has been memes made about, you know, making fun of the whole idea of people constantly complaining, you know that there is some there is some annoyance there for people, you know, that you know, I think is somewhat legitimate. Like, I think, you know, it's legitimate to, I guess, complain about people who are complaining. Especially, again, when they're complaining about the stupidest things, like this one Starbucks cup. You know, just the color, you know, like, why do you need to complain about this? It's just, there's just no reason. Just no reason whatsoever. So again, yeah, it's just, again, it's really complaining about first world problems. It's really complaining about something that really doesn't need any attention or focus. Um, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, Starbucks actually might have liked it because, you know, the more exposure, or at least it's marketing that it gets from all the people, complaining. And again, I think that's really ultimately what ends up sparking even more controversy. And I think a lot of that is projected through social media and is a lot of times through the internet. So again, I think what we should be focusing on is, instead of complaining, cooperate and learn that life isn't perfect and it's not designed to be. But the important thing is what you make of it, on this short while that you have. I mean, I just don't see why going around and complaining is going to make your life any better. And people constantly wanting to, have their cake and, eat it too, so to speak. I mean, I think oftentimes that goes with, a lack of appreciation. Like we're incapable of really appreciating the things that ultimately matter, which I think is really unfortunate. And I think, again, it has a lot to do with our sort of mentality, and a lot of that is generated through the constant need to complain, and the whole idea of projecting on to other people the feelings that people have. And it might have to do with, some people might be lonely, they might be fairly insecure, so they take that out and complain about whatever they want to complain about. There's always a variety of reasons into which people try to overanalyze something. But I think, at the end of the day, what we should try to strive for is, a sense of cooperation, of trying to kind of get along and try to, at least acknowledge, that even though you maybe disagree with something or the way in which something is presented, you still go about your day and you don't let something that, bothers you bother you. I think that's really what it all boils down to. And I think, unfortunately, the complaining and the constant need to project one's opinion on something that is really not necessarily that big of a deal and make a big deal out of it is something that I don't think, at least any planet needs with its inhabitants, whether you be in the first world or not. So again, it's just crazy, the world in which, at least within the Western world, how we've sort of developed, at least into. But I think that's really ultimately all I can really say about this particular topic. I mean, if you really look at the whole way in which, certain ways in which we interact with one another, I think you'll find that, unfortunately, a lot of it is designed to be very divisive, and in doing so, be very on the side of, not just going out and complaining, instead of, just trying to kind of get along and work things through. Because I think complaining is very counterproductive also. So again, you don't really end up helping, by complaining. Unless maybe you're dealing with some poor customer service. I mean, I can understand being a little bit grumpy about that. But I mean, these simple things like just a Starbucks cup, I just don't get it. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say when it comes to this topic. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, be more than happy to answer them, and be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say about this particular issue. But until next time, everyone, bye-bye.